3 against self-defense measures against brainwashed. Let's talk about the Joseph Mengele's by naturalnews.com printable article published March 6, 2006. Human medical experimentation in the United States. Semicolon. The shocking true story of modern medicine and psychiatry. From 1833 to 1965. You know, by the truly mentally ill and insane. Continuing. By Danny Veracity. Introduction by the Health Ranger. The United States claims to be the world leader in medicine, but there's a dark side to the Western medicine that few people want to acknowledge. The horrifying medical experiments performed on impoverished people and their children, all in the name of scientific progress. Many of these medical experiments were conducted on people without their knowledge, and most were conducted as part of an effort to seek profits from newly approved drugs or medical technologies. Today, the medical experiments continue on the U.S. population and its children, from the mass drugging of children diagnosed with fictitious behavioral disorders invented by psychiatry to the FDA's approval of mass-marketed drugs that have undergone no legitimate trials. Our population right now is being subjected to medical experiments on a staggering scale. Today, nearly 50% of Americans are at least one prescription drug. I call it poisons. And nearly 20% of school children are on mind-altering amphetamines disguised as Ritalins or antidepressants like Prozac, another poison. The mass medication of our nation is in every way a grand medical experiment taking place right now. And I'll add, for profit, by mentally, truly insane diabolicals because they're serial killers on the loose. Continuing. But to truly understand how this mass experimentation on modern Americans came into being, you have to take a close look at the horrifying history of conventional medicine's exploitation of people for cruel medical experiments. Warning, this isn't for the ignorant and the sensitive, because we're at war. Continuing. What you're about to hear is truly shocking. You've never been told this information by the American Medical Association, nor the drug companies, nor the evening news. You were never taught the truth about conventional medicine in the public school, or even at the university. You know, another CIA program. Intelligent op. Continuing. This is a dark secret of the United States system of medicine, and what you read or hear, the true accounts reported here, you may never trust drug companies again. These images are deeply disturbing. We print them here not as a form of entertainment, but as a stern warning against what might happen to us if our children, if we do not rein in the horrifying, inhumane actions of Big Pharma and modern-day psychiatry. Hear at your own risk. The truth, not fucking bullshit. Human experimentation, that is, subjecting live human beings to science experiments that are sometimes cruel, sometimes painful, sometimes deadly, and always a risk, is a major part of U.S. history that you won't find in any or most history or science books. The United States is undoubtedly responsible for some of the most amazing scientific breakthroughs. These advancements, especially in the field of medicine, have changed the lives of billions of people around the world, sometimes for the better, as in the case of finding a cure for malaria and other epidemic diseases, and sometimes for the worse. Consider modern psychiatry and the drugging, I say poisoning, of children. However, these breakthroughs come with a hefty price tag to human beings used in experiments that made these advancements possible. Over the last 2 centuries, some of the test subjects have not been compensated for the damage done to their emotional and physical health, and most have not. Most have lost their lives because all the experiments they've unwillingly, and sometimes even unwillingly, participated in. And they, of course, can never be compensated for losing the most precious possession of all, their health. I'm going to skip through a paragraph here, or two. I'll post these documents up online. 1833, Dr. William Beaumont, an Army surgeon physician, pioneers gastric medicine with the study of a patient with a permanently open gunshot wound to the abdomen, and writes a human medical experimentation code that asserts the importance of experimental treatments, but also lists requirements stipulating that human subjects must give voluntary, informed consent and be able to end the experiment when they want. Beaumont's code lists verbal rather than just written consent as permissible. Bullshit. Written consent, signed, dated, notarized, or else. 1845, J. Merriam Sims, later hailed as the father of genealogy, performs medical experiments on enslaved African women without anesthesia, because he's moral and ethical and he has a sane head upstairs. These women would usually die of infection after surgery, based on his belief that the movement of newborn skull bones during protracted births caused trismus. He also used a shoemaker's awl, a pointed tool shoemakers used to make holes in leather to practice moving the skull bones of babies born to enslaved mothers. Breaker. 1895, New York pediatrician Henry Hyman infects a 4-year-old boy whom he calls an idiot with a chronic epilepsy with gonorrhea as part of a medical experiment. 1896, Dr. Arthur Wentworth turns 29 children at Boston's Children's Hospital into guinea pigs when he performs spinal taps on them just to test whether the procedure is harmful. Gosh, do you think? If I stick a needle in the back of my back, do you think that's a go for torture program and science experiment? Continuing. 1900, U.S. Army doctors working in the Philippines infect 5 Filipino prisoners with plague and withhold proper nutrition to create beriberi in 29 prisoners. 4 test subjects die. Under commission from the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Walter Reed goes to Cuba and uses 22 Spanish migrant workers to prove that yellow fever is contracted through mosquito bites. Doing so, he introduces the practice of using healthy test subjects and also the concept of a written contract to confirm informed consent of these subjects. While doing this, Dr. Reed clearly tells the subjects that, though he will do everything he can to help them, they may die as a result of the experiment. He pays them $100 in gold for their participation, plus $100 if they contract yellow fever. Continuing, 1906, Professor Dr. Richard Strong infects prisoners in the Philippines with cholera to study the disease. 13 of them die. He compensates survivors with cigars and cigarettes. During the Nuremberg trials, Nazi doctors cite the study to justify their own medical experiments. 1911, Dr. Hideo Noguchi of the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research publishes data on injecting an inactive syphilis preparation in the skin of 146 hospital patients and normal children in an attempt to develop a skin test for syphilis. Later, in 1913, several of these children's parents sue Dr. Noguchi for allegedly infecting their children with syphilis. I'm not done here. Stay tuned for the continuation of the code for chemical violence going on. Information exposed. Now,